Sound check. One, two, three, four.
Good evening. My name is Kurt Prendergast. I'm a reporter with the Tucson Agenda, a daily newsletter that covers local government and politics. I'll be the moderator for this evening's debate. The Citizens Clean Elections Commission is a sponsor of this event. As the state's voter education agency, Clean Elections is the official sponsor of Arizona debates, so voters have the opportunity to hear directly from the candidates, ask questions on the issues that matter most to them, and vote informed. Voters who are watching this debate live, you can submit a question at any time by email to debates@kc-a.com. That's debates@kc-a.com. Or you can send it by text to 408-302-1810. That's 408-302-1810. You can also call in the questions to 480-937-1253. That's 480-937-1253. We may not get to all the audience questions, but we'll do our best. Tonight, we'll be hearing from a Republican candidate for state senate in Legislative District 17, Vince Leach. LD17 covers Saddlebrook, Oro Valley, Marana, Santa Catalina Mountains, Tucson's East Side, and Vail. As this is a primary election debate, candidates are competing against others in their party to become the official party nominee. All registered voters, including independent voters, can vote in the primary. Independent voters must choose a single party ballot they wish to vote. So since we only have one person today, we'll just have a more informal chat with Mr. Leach. We're going to start off with Mr. Leach. Could you just tell us about yourself?
Sure. First of all, thanks Clean Elections for hosting this. I've done this a couple of times. It's a great avenue for voters to learn more about candidates, what they stand for. And what's really unique about this program is that they're able to ask questions where that doesn't happen on all the other candidate functions that we're at. And then thank you to you, Kurt, for coming on. And I'll give your Tucson Agenda a plug. I read it every morning. I don't know what time you publish that. I get up pretty early, but it's always in my mailbox really, really early. And it gives me kind of what's going on south of the Gila River, which we don't get a lot of news and in areas that you're covering. So thank you and to Caitlin for putting that together. That's no small task and doing that. Yeah, so I am running for Senate, LD17, which goes from Picture Rocks across Marana, Oro Valley, also Saddlebrook Ranch, and then goes up the mountain. I have this in this new district, LD17. I have the top of the mountain. I have the people that live up there, and then it goes just a little bit further. It makes a hard right-hand turn and goes all the way down to I-10 through Tanque Verde Valley and down to Vail. So, everything north, with the exception of Rita Ranch on that side. If you want to know geography, Houghton Road, or to be more definitive, Harrison Road, but that'll give you some of the geography. So it's a upside down backward L, if you will, for a district. It's time-wise, it's about the same time to drive it as my old district, where I went from Saddlebrook to Maricopa, because that was all high-speed traveling. This is, you have to go through the city to get there. It's an interesting district, you know, with the retirement communities in the north, and as you go down into Oro Valley, Marana, the working suburbanites. You come around Tanque Verde area, really solid. It's been around for a while. And then you get down to Vail, and I swear there's another boxcar of nails and lumber going in there every time I go down there, because there's homes building up left and right. In fact, there's going to be a new school opening in Rocking Ranch. I believe that's the name of the community going up. So they're, you know, they continue to expand down there, and it's a great community, great schools, and LD17, one of the best, if not the best, school district in the area. So that's kind of what I'm doing, and happy to be here and happy to take questions.
Great. Then I want to thank you for joining us. We also invited the other the other candidates in LD17, Justine Wodsack, who you're competing against for the Republican nomination for state senate. Incumbents Corey McGarr and Rachel Jones for the House seats, and challenger Anna Orth. Unfortunately, they were not able to join us this evening. But so I want to start off with, this is not your first time in the state legislature, right? Or wouldn't be. You were in the House from 2015 to 2019, is that right?
That's correct.
And then in the Senate from 2019 to 2023?
That's correct.
All right, so I'm just curious, looking back on that, like, what do you think was your biggest accomplishment when you were a legislator?
Wow. If it's on the financial side, it's obviously the balanced budgets, the amount of, it's a combination of things, but the financial picture, we paid down humongous debt in our pension system. PSPRS was only like 57% funded, which is just a drag on the economy. When people are looking at states to expand to, one of the things they're starting to tell them is look at pension debt, because somebody's going to have to pick up that pension debt. And so the economy was running smooth late, before 2020, and we had funds and we put it there. That debt, and this maybe is a little bit in the weeds, that debt was accumulating in 7.3% per year. We wish we were all getting that on checkbook savings on savings accounts. And so we paid down enormous debt there. We balanced the budget every year for 8 years. It was a balanced budget. Sometimes pretty hard to get there, and other years a little bit easier. I think that's that financial picture, and then obviously to go to a flat tax. And the flat tax is not. It's good. It's very good for the citizens of the state of Arizona. Everybody pays 2.5%. There was a tax reduction for everybody in the state. Some smaller, some larger, depending on where you were income-wise, but it's now a flat tax. The other thing that we have to look at when you look at taxes is that, we're still being flown over to some degree for people that want to go to Texas, no income tax, Florida, no income tax, and the state of Tennessee, no income tax. Now, you and I both know, because we've been around government will get money to run government. But there's other ways of doing that, do that responsible. I think the other thing that it did is it forced us in the state legislature to look how the state legislature works and where we could save. For example, in the 8 years I was there, not through firing, but just through attrition and watching the state employment, when I left in beginning of 23, we have 5,000 less employees, and we were still getting the work done. On the social side, there's a few things. I think one of the things that I still get comments on almost 3 years now is that I voted twice for girls play girls sports and boys play boys sports. It was it still is in the news a lot. I just think, and I think the legislature felt at that time that was, and you may have pros and cons one way or the other, but I just see young men coming into women's sports and dominating. That will be to the detriment and actually to the fall. I mean, if you have a 7'3" center on your basketball team, that's probably not going to be equal opportunity. So financial and on the social side.
Okay. And on the financial part of it is, the state has a budget deficit they're dealing with. I was wondering, could you tell us, like, how do you think that evolves, so that we had the deficit, and if you were elected, what would you do to resolve it?
Yeah, Kurt, thank you for that question. It's very frustrating, and probably one of the biggest reasons that I really decided, when I first got into it, the deficit wasn't identified, and then the budget was passed. The budget set up, the budget process. I served on appropriations for 8 years. I've gone through the budget process, and it's not fun, because somebody doesn't get what they want, or somebody else, Kirk got everything and I didn't get anything. So, and it's a long process. When I was on appropriations, we would start in August before we passed the budget in March, April, or May, and work through it with all the departments. This budget was different in that to get everybody on the budget in a divided government, they gave every sitting senator on the Republican side $30 million and every sitting representative on the House side $20 million. Then there was a pot of money for the governor's office, and then both the Democrats in the House and Senate had money. I'm trying to run those numbers down. I don't, but it was more than $1.50. Okay, it was pretty substantial money. They went into that budget setting, the legislature did, with 2.5 billion. That's a billion dollar surplus. And so one of the thoughts we had when I was there, I was in the room when all this was put together, was that, you know, what's going to happen down the road? So we didn't spend all the money that came in. That's what created the $2.5 billion in case something would turn south. We knew that DC wasn't going to pump out any more money like they had been. It's just, I mean, there's boatload after boatload coming in. And so we had to be fiscally responsible. We put $2.5 billion. That's gone. Do I know where it all goes? No, it's very hard to find out. I'm not trying, but those aren't from my eyes. And we're looking at the beginning of the year, JOBC, the Joint Legislative Budget Committee, that does all the budgeting, the forecasting, and the analysis, said we were about $1.8 billion deficit, and now we've picked up a little bit, but we're still a staggering $1.3 billion in. And so the legislature is going to have to roll up their sleeves and soon, because what's today, the 24th? So we've got about 30 days plus 37 days in a new budget.
So do you have any thoughts on, like, you know, if you're elected, you roll up your sleeves, what would you do?
You're going to have to. And the way we did it this would have been 15, because we were precariously short, having problems then. And that was, if you remember, that was one of the shortest sessions we had. We got out in March. But when there is no money, you go in and you get a budget done and you get out. Because there is no money, you don't have all of the interest groups coming forward. You don't have all the legislator asked. You just get a budget done. I was asked that same question, or about the same question at an event a couple, 2 or 3 weeks ago, where they asked me how would I fix it. And I wish it would just, you could go in and take 4 or 5 pieces and make up 1.3 billion. You can't. You have to do the painstaking work of going back to see what, if anything, you can claw back that you gave away in the last budget that isn't already committed, that already hasn't been done. For example, road projects or other things. The rebate that was in that budget, the $250 million, that money is spent. You're not going to claw that back, but there's other things that you can claw back. Then additionally, you have to go through line item by line item, department by department, agency by agency, and make them come in and talk to them and argue, cajole, have an extra cup of coffee and take a break once in a while and say, listen, we've got to shore ourselves up here. I see that I've read that the Governor Hobbs has asked each department to come up with 4% cut. I don't know how that comes out budget wise, but that's how you have to do it. It's kind of like eating an elephant. You do it one bite at a time. There's not one thing that you can do to alleviate that kind of shortfall.
Okay. One of the big issues this year is abortion. You know, that's everywhere. Everyone's talking about that. What should Arizona's abortion laws look like to you? What would you like?
Well, it's easy for me to answer that question. I voted for 15-week ban twice. I voted once for it in committee, I'm all on record in committee of speaking to it.
Mhm.
And I voted for it to get on the floor. I think it should be 15 weeks. And I'm a Republican. I think everyone at least I know that you know, and probably many of the viewers know, actually the Republican platform says 20 weeks, with the exception of rape, incest, and life of the mother. And that's my position, always has been my position. Now, that's my position that I can vote for, and that's what my constituents want. I think the constituents in 17, from my discussions, would indicate that's where you need to be. I'm a Christian. I'd like to save every child. In our society today, as terrible as it is to say this, there are people that will do things that we wish they wouldn't do. And we're not going to be able to stop all that. Government is not that possible. And you really don't want a government that if they can do that, they could do other things that would not be beneficial to the country and to the state.
Okay, all right. It looks like we have a question from a reader. I'm going to throw at you here. This is the voter. They're concerned about politicians' knowledge of the Constitution.
Politicians would.
I'm sorry, politicians' knowledge of the Constitution.
Yeah.
So, what are your views on upholding the laws of the Constitution with a strict constitutional lens versus the supporting the idea of a living, evolving Constitution?
Yeah, the Constitution is, in my mind, and I'm a poli-sci major. Not that that's going to impress the person with the question or not, and they may hurt me. But the Constitution was written, it's worked for all these many years with certain amendments that have come forward and have been thought out and presented. It doesn't evolve I mean, if you look at the things that have changed just in my lifetime, and Kurt, in your lifetime, we would have several changes to our Constitution. That doesn't set up a livable situation where you have consistency. The rules are always changing, and you put your finger in the air and see which way the wind is blowing, and you write it up. From the constitutional standpoint, one of the things that I don't know if the listeners and the viewers know is that when we write a bill, when we have a bill idea that comes from whatever source, maybe comes from a listener, maybe comes from a government entity, maybe comes from an interest group, whatever they may be, it's written and it goes to what is called the Legislative Council. They take simple things like all bags should be brown. Okay, very simple. And by the time they get done with it, they put it in legalese to make sure it will stand the muster. But one of the things that they check religiously is they check whether it fits the Constitution, not only of the state of Arizona, but of the U.S. Constitution. And they will tell you right up front whether or not if you push them and do something that is not constitutional, they will tell you, and that word gets out, and it becomes very hard to push that bill through. The Constitution was written. If we need to amend it, so be it. I think we need a balanced budget amendment, for example, and I think we really need to look at something along term limits. Term limits in the area of 5 years might be too short, but certainly somewhere between 40 and 80 years. I think we need, and I hope people don't say Leach wants 80-year term limits. No, I'm trying to make a point that people that are there for that long, I think lose touch with society in their district, how things change, certainly that long with the demographics of their district, the ages of their district, what's going on. And so I've signed on to term limits. I would vote for term limits. I have voted for it already, as well as a balanced budget. We have balanced budget amendment here in the state of Arizona. If we can live with it, we have to. I just read something that we're borrowing $1 trillion every 100 days. That's not sustainable. We're 35 trillion in a whole We've got to fix that. We need, if that needs to go in the Constitution, probably we'll never have an amendment. I think probably when we get to that point, Congress will wake up and say they really don't want the public setting what their job is, and they will probably take the necessary steps to fix it. But we'll see. Hopefully soon.
Okay. All right, then I want to jump to another big issue for this year is immigration.
Yeah.
So the legislature is trying to send HCR 2060 to the voters this fall, and that would make it a state crime to cross the border illegally. I want to know what's your take on HCR 2060 and what role should the state play in immigration?
You know, Kurt, and for your listeners and viewers, you know, for 8 years, I was in the legislature, and for the first 6 of those, when a question like this came forward and it said, you know, we're doing what we can. We put money down there with the, we established with the governor, we established a budget strike force. I think that was in 15 or 16, where we actually put money in the budget specifically for border protection. But we always fell back on, and this is terrible to maybe frame it this way, not my job, man. It's the feds. Listen, both parties, my party through Trump, and party in power now through Mr. Biden, are not getting the job done. And, you know, I'm probably going to be chastised by those in my party for saying that. But the fact is, the fentanyl growth, I heard yesterday, and you're from Tucson, fentanyl tablet is going for 25 cents. Fentanyl tablet is going for 25 cents. And you don't know what it is, how strong it is. We've got to take care of that. We don't have operational control of our borders. We have the costs that are coming through our borders. We have to, by law, they have to come into our schools. And that's fine. If they're going to stay here and be part of a protective society, they should go to school. But most of them move on and go someplace else. But that's a cost to our schools. It's a cost to our medical system. It's a cost to certainly law. I mean, I don't need to tell you, Kurt, what it's like in Tucson. I live just across the line. I live in one of the safest counties in Arizona, in Pinal. But the crime problem in Tucson, and to much the same degree, but a little bit less than Tucson, in the Phoenix market, you know, and it also adds to the homeless problem that we've got to take care of, and maybe we can address that in a separate question. But the legislature finally had, one more thing before I go on to what HCR 2060, I think that's the number. Right. The last budget year that I was there, one of my requests, because I was in the budget committee in the room where we formed it, we put $565 million in the budget, in the border strike force, and $365 million of that was to build. We found a piece of land 11 miles long that we the state, could build a wall on. And we did our research. We figured out our cost people said it's going to cost you about $365 million. We set that aside. For some reason, and it's in the budget from the last budget that was passed, not only is that money gone, the border strike force is gone. Most people won't find it because it's in the budget reconciliation burbs. You know them. We all talk about the burbs, where the burbs are budget reconciliation that tells everybody how to spend the budget money. Things get buried in there that don't see. And I had to look like mad. Somebody told me about it. I said, no, that can't be. They wouldn't get rid of that, but that's gone. That's frustrating because we had money set aside. The legislature now, you know, the legislature now has finally come to the point that neither party at the national level has the wherewithal, the power, or the Congress behind them, the divided Congress that we have, to get the job done and protect our borders. I mean, if you go back in history, long time ago in history, we started with tribalism, okay, and then we had borders. The Greeks and the Romans established borders to have a society, and without borders you don't have that.
Mhm. Okay. I want to see we're going to do this for we're like a half hour, something like that, as we're going to do today. So I want to give like one or two more questions that I'm going to ask you for your kind of your closing
We
here.
just got started.
I feel like we could do this forever. Yeah, okay, let's do water. All right, so LD17, you have a lot of agriculture, you have growing communities.
Yeah.
What kind of groundwater regulation, what would you like to see there?
We're probably going to have to, without a doubt. We only have four AMAs, active management areas. We're probably going to have to look at more of those, and not. I'm concerned about the state taking over water, and running water. That has always been and always has to continue as a property right. And so if you followed this at all, when you start talking about measuring wells and moving water from one place to the other, that's always been a property right, settled in court, that's settled law. And then we have our indigenous peoples that have water. And so it's more than a three-legged stool. It's like a 15-legged stool when you get into it, and move it around. We put, and again, this is a little frustrating. The last budget I worked on, we put, you may remember, Rusty Bowers was adamant that we put $1 billion in the budget, spread over 3 years, to address water, to find out where the water was, not only in state but out of state, and how we could work with that. There was talk about desalination in Mexico, and trading water. Desalination, as you know, requires a lot of electricity. We have electricity. We have the capability of producing more electricity at Palo Verde. The $1 billion is gone. It's not in the line item budget. Now I see Governor Hobbs has put 300 million back in her budget recommendation. I don't know if it's going to stay or not. We have to have that in there. We have to find out. We have got tons of state land and federal land. We have to find out what water quantity is under that. We're only about 7, depending on who you talk to, 17.5% private property in the state of Arizona. The rest is either tribal land, BLM land, state land. There's water there that we can use. And we have to figure out what to do with the brackish water that we have in Pinal County, and the areas around Buckeye. It's pretty hard to use desalination around there because the ground is already so salty that you can't just put the brine back on the ground. So there's ways we can do it. We've got water. We have to have water. People want to come here. Businesses want to come here. We have a tax scheme that is fairly competitive, and we just have to make sure that we have water. So we've got it for housing and for industrial uses.
Okay. I'm going to take another question from a voter. This is about taxes. Are there any taxes that can be implemented or expanded to help address the deficit? The voter says they understand the need for austerity measures and addressing the issue of wasteful spending, but is there a tax that can be implemented to help address the deficit?
Yeah. At the state level, it will be impossible. And I say that pretty clear because at the state level, to increase the general fund, any amount takes 2/3 vote. Anybody that's been watching the legislature for the last 4 or 5 or 6 years, they can't even decide if it should be Diet Coke or Diet Pepsi for lunch. So it's just not going to. And the voters put that in. That was not part of the Constitution until the voters put it in, because there were all kinds of tax increases. So a tax increase in and of itself is well, you don't have 2/3. When you have a 1-seat majority in both the House and the Senate, and you need 2/3, you need 20 in the Senate, and you need 2/3, 60% of 60 is 36. And it's just, I don't know how to make that flowery or anything. It's just not going to happen. People try to say a fee and one thing and the other, but $1.3 billion is a lot. Have to claw back what we spent, what we misspent.
But I guess, for the voter question, there's, you're getting at like the reality of the situation. But if there was a way to get to 2/3, is there a tax that you see that you think, yep, that would be great if we expanded that? That would help us with the deficit?
Kurt, you and my history, and for me to talk about taxes that I would increase, it's me sledding uphill versus sledding downhill. The taxes that I would see being increased would come through growth, and that would be corporate income tax, that would be a sales tax. That sales tax and construction tax were the two taxes that kept us alive during COVID. We did not shut down construction. You saw the cranes, particularly in Phoenix. We did not shut down construction, and that saved our bacon. So I guess the forward answer from this candidate is no, I don't see it. We have to claw back. We have to get within our means. It's just like, say, your wife says, we don't have any money in the budget, go ask your boss for more money. That's probably not going to happen. And so you've just got to figure out a way to do it without going back to the taxpayer.
Okay. So I want to ask you the key question of an election is, you're running against State Senator Justine Watzak. So why should voters choose you over Watzak?
Experience. I think in the last year, and I'm not going to talk necessarily about her, although she voted for these bills. She voted for the bills that caused a $1.3 billion shortfall. She signed on to a bill that wanted to get rid of the Arizona Commerce Authority, probably the premier government agency that brings new businesses to Arizona. And I know someone will say, well, that all goes to Phoenix. No, 25% of ACA money, Arizona Commerce Authority, has to come south of the Gila. And so you've got that experience. I know the importance, and I think you, Tucson, the importance of the School of Deaf and Blind. Our current senator wanted to limit that, not get rid of it. She has voted twice to get rid of DCS, the protection system for children, just eliminate it. That's, as much as I would like to eliminate that, the fact is, and I said this earlier, we have people in our society that are bad people that do bad things, not only to things that don't have feelings, but things that are children. And we need to have a place to take care of that. She signed on to a bill to not have a balanced budget amendment, for example. She signed on to a bill that would not have term limits. And so the experience of being there, being at the table, knowing that when you vote for something that you don't have, that you've got the experience of knowing what the unintended consequences. And has every vote that I've taken been perfect? No. I mean, I'm sure the people out there watching say, you voted for this and you voted for this. Well, you vote for about 700, you vote about 700 times a year. And I will admit, there are some that and I can remember one with a school bus and taking pictures where the gate comes out. And it was, when we got into it and I voted for it, it was a red flag law. It was a red light camera law. So yeah, experience in the system. and knowing and being here in front of you, in front of the people, to have these discussions and have questions. I didn't know what the questions were. Nobody provided me the questions in advance. And this is what I stand for. I will also say if people have a question and go to ivoter.com or Ballotpedia, and you can see 8 years of my experience, 8 years of experience on budget, 6 years of finance, on finance and taxes. And you've got a qualified candidate that's willing to put in the work and get the job done for the betterment of Arizona to make it a better place to live, work, and play.
All right. Well, we're now we're over our 30 minutes here, and that's kind of a wrap up statement a little bit. But I want to ask you, like, are there some some big issues that I didn't ask you about? I know there's a lot, but are there any you want to particular that you want to talk about? And do you have any type of closing remarks you'd like to make?
Yeah, education is one, and I'll try to keep this short because I know we're up against the clock. Education is one. We have, as I mentioned in my comments, we have Vail with very, very, very good schools, and then we have TUSD with very, very poor performance. And interestingly enough, we don't have the performance in Oro Valley at the Amfi School District or Marana. And that's kind of frustrating because the money is there. We've increased funding for students from $9,000, roughly $9,500 in 2015 to just short of $16,000. It's cheaper to go to college than it is to fund a student. So we've got to tighten that up. We've got to figure out how to get performance, get our kids ready to go into jobs, whether it be college or whether it be the trades. I was asked in a previous Zoom today, workforce development. I said, we've got to go right back to the schools. These kids are not ready. And if you talk to the college people, they said the remedial work that they have to do to get them up to speed. We have to take care of that. Infrastructure, we didn't talk too much about that, but as we grow, we need roads. And then a funny thing happens to roads out here in the desert in the sun, they need to be fixed. And we need to come up with a system, and HERF doesn't seem to be getting it done. Highway User Revenue Funds doesn't seem to be getting that job done. And I am not for looking at your speedometer and you pay by mile, but there's got to be some creative way that we can look at funding our roads and road development. I know we've got the RTA down here, whether or not that gets passed in Southern Arizona. I haven't heard the latest. I know they're on a slippery slope. Yeah. They think that they're there, but then they're not. Obviously, Phoenix has it also, and they're doing some of that funding themselves. But we've got I-10. Look how long it took us to take care of I-10 between Casa Grande and Wild Horse Pass. There's nothing but and I can speak personally from that. I had a car totaled on that road. It's just it's not good to have people sitting in traffic for 2 or 3 hours when they could be spending money going to work or whatever. So education and workforce. And then our roads. Those are 3 topics that have to be addressed. And of course, a lot of that is addressed through the budget process. Education, not as much as infrastructure, but it has to be taken care of. It has to be addressed, and it just can't be shoved into a corner.
Okay. I mean, would you like to make any other type of closing remark?
Yeah, my website, VinceLeachForSenate.com. My email, I'll give you my personal email, V as in Victor, W as in Willie, LEACH@gmail.com. The whole world has my cell phone number, so there's no reason why I shouldn't give you your viewers, 520-818-8814. You're going to have to leave a message because if you're not in my system, it's going to send you the message. But if there's a burning issue or I had an issue that came up 2 days ago here where I live, and somebody was having problems, not in my area. Guess what? They were having problems with IRS. And so
Mm.
fancy that. Nobody's ever had that problem, but I was able to, and that's the other thing about my experience. I may not be able to fix the problem, but I know who to call, whether it be Tucson, whether it be Pima County government, whether it be one of the ABC agencies at the state. I've developed, a Rolodex. That's old terms, but a Rolodex of contacts that know how and when and where to fix problems. So, and I'm available for that. I want to thank Clean Elections. I want to thank you.
Sure.
And again, I want to thank you for your publication. That's a good publication, and it's a short read. What is it? 300 words, if that?
We aim for about like a 5 minute, 6 minute read.
Yeah.
And it comes out to probably like 800 words in the top,
Okay.
and then another 600 below.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a fast read, and it gives you, but it's a good read. I say fast, but it's not fast in that you just look at it. It gives you what's going on in the greater Tucson area, and that's important. So thank you to Clean Elections, my friends there, and thank you to you, and thank you to everybody that tuned in and asked questions. That's important in participation in our government.
Well, you're stealing my lines here.
Okay.
So I want to thank you for participating today, and obviously, just like you said, all the voters who took the time to watch the debate. We encourage you to visit azcleanelections.gov for official, accurate voting information. All right, thank you so much, everybody.
Good night.